Hey everyone, welcome back to Misandry Today's DDJ's Inferno, the weekly show where we talk about issues relevant to men and MGTOW. And this week, we're going to have Sunrise Hoodie on. Sunrise, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me on, DDJ. Misandry today, as everyone knows. Making MGTOW content for about 6 months now, and appreciate you having me on, especially with some of the guests before me.
Yeah, no problem. It's good having you on. We're going to get to you in just a second. I just wanted to introduce you to everybody, let them know that you're actually here, hear your voice. I'm going to take care of a little bit of housekeeping measures and a couple other things before we get started. So for those of you who are brand new to DDJ's Inferno, if you're on a desktop computer or you're on Twitch TV, on the lower right-hand side where you see our sponsor, the Dollhouse icon, you're going to see some green Bukkake choke slams showing up. Now, those particular Bukkake choke slams, you can redeem them. There's a little box that comes up if you hover over it. You can redeem them to ask questions anytime during the show. In addition to that, my Q&A thought is here, Lyli even 32, and she'll be able to take your questions in the chat. So if you type your question, brackets and question, and then who the question's to, myself or Sunrise Hoodie, go ahead and ask those questions, and you can put them in the chat. She'll collect them, and then during the Q&A session, after the end of the presentation portion of the stream, we'll go ahead and address those questions from everybody else. If you're on Roku, it's my understanding that you're not going to have the ability to ask questions, but if you're on mobile, you'll definitely want to ask your questions through the chat rather than through the Q&A. So with that, and Humanator, we can hit that question during the Q&A. Lyli, if you're still here, go ahead and say something in the chat. For those people that are, if you want to ask your question directly, tag Lyli in your question as well. That's another option, and then she'll see the question as well. That'll make it easier for her to see. All right, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and deal with some housekeeping from the last couple weeks or so. I think it's important that we get started again, and just to make sure before I get started, everybody can hear me okay? I know that obviously the chat is going to be a little bit behind in my audio. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. So if you can hear me, definitely let me know. Just say yes if you can hear me, and then that way I can see it in the chat. I just want to make sure that I'm not squared away. Verachasi, I'm going to keep it off of slow mode for a while. I will say this, if you are subscribed to my channel, you do not get slow mode. So just as an FYI, for those people who are subscribers, you're not affected by slow mode. And of course, my mods aren't there either. Thank you, Grizzly, for hanging out. Thank you, Plumber. I appreciate it. Oslo, good to see you. Taz and MGTOW, good to see you. Just kind of a little shout out there. Appreciate you guys showing up. But again, back to kind of a little bit of the stuff that's been going on over the last couple of weeks. I think it needs to be addressed, and I'm hoping to put this to bed once and for all. So let's get started. Really, I think it's important. Really, we get started with this to really talk about the nature of fighting, and obviously for those that know me, you know that I have a bit of martial arts background, and if you haven't been in an actual street fight, let me kind of tell you how they normally happen. You see, usually if you have any legitimate fighting experience, you'll know that cucks and manginas, they don't just randomly come up to you and hit you. It's not out of the blue, unless you're being robbed or unless there's somebody that they're trying to stuff you in the back of a van that says Chimo van or something like that. They don't just run up and randomly hit you. Usually they talk a bunch of shit about you first. They don't ever talk to you. They talk about you. Then, when they finally get the courage to talk shit to you, eventually when they work themselves up after that, then they'll take a swing. But usually it's from some kind of ambush. It's not a straight-up fight. And even then, they surround themselves with followers, some kind of cheering squad, and the reason is because they're trying to outnumber you with their friends. And I guess the takeaway here is that they never fight fair. They never fight one-on-one. And they do this because they're cucks and manginas. Now, why am I addressing this? It's because cucks and manginas have been attacking me for calling out the red pill coin ICO a scam, because it has no intrinsic value. Now, this is something that Angry MGTOW has repeatedly admitted to. Now, in addition to that, when I did call it out, Angry MGTOW, MGTOW 101, some of the rest of them, the Cantu Cuck Squad, they've all attempted to retaliate against me for publicly calling out the Red Pill Coin ICO and falsely accusing me of promoting child abuse and falsely accusing me of doxing people. And now I find out last night after the TFM show, or during the TFM show, they've threatened to deplatform TFM because of my public statements. And when that didn't work, they went after his patrons. They went after his sponsors. They tried to scare his patrons and tried to get his patrons to talk his patrons into trying to get me deplatformed. Anchors Away, one of his sponsors, was targeted by a DDoS attack, in addition to a lot of negative comments in social media. I mean, these are bitch moves. These are absolutely bitch moves. You know, they've done everything in their power except for confront any of the issues my videos talk about or confront me directly. Now, I did have a request, and I was like, look, if you guys are interested, you know, we can talk and we can have a live stream and you can address the issues. And they didn't want any of that. They didn't want no part of that. In fact, Angry MGTOW said in the comments section of a MGTOW 101 video that if he live streamed with me, he would destroy the Red Pill brand. So, like the mangina cucks they are, they're like fucking cockroaches. They, you know, you turn the light on and they scamper away. And, you know, the sad part about this is that the entire time, they pretend that they, like, support the freedom of speech. When, in the reality, nothing can be further from the truth. And this is why I always say, you don't believe anything in what they say. And you only believe half of what they see, of what you see. And more importantly, you always trust but verify. Because when you see what they're actually doing, that tells you everything you need to know about what kind of people they are, what kind of ethics they have or don't have. And you see that, you know, what they say and what they do are two different things. Now, with that in mind, this next piece, I'm addressing MGTOW 101. I've made some specific videos about him with some concerns. I'm not going to get into those things here today. I think if you're interested in that, go check those videos out. They're available. I'm not pulling them down anytime soon. But MGTOW 101, I wanted to let you know something. There were some people who were publicly accusing you in the comments section of my videos of wanting to close MGTOW channels down and to buy TFM's channel and to buy Sandman's channel. And I reached out to that person to find out if there was any veracity to it. And there wasn't. They were bullshit. They were false allegations. I mean, these people were making up lies about you. And I said this. I said as much. I said, this is fake news. It's bullshit. You can look at my Twitter feed if you choose to be man enough to unblock me. And you can see that. I posted, I think it was yesterday or the day before. It might have been Friday if I remember correctly. But again, false allegations, no matter where they come from, should be called out. And you need to understand that I will never condone false allegations against anybody. And whether it's me, whether it's TFM, whether it's the Dollhouse, or anybody else, I will never condone that. And that also includes you, MGTOW 101. And with that in mind, I also wanted to thank you publicly to make sure that people understood that, you know, after the stream last night, the Dollhouse reached out to me about an hour after the stream ended. And good on you for refunding the money that you accepted from Phil. You know, even though I've got issues with your ethics, and even though you clearly have issues with me because, you know, I've upset your friend or some shit, you know, you have my respect for that. I think it's a valid first step. Now, with that in mind, though, you know, while before this whole manhood thing grows cold, I think you should finish by issuing a public apology to me, especially to Turd Flinging Monkey, and to the Dollhouse for falsely accusing us of promoting child abuse. Now, the semantics I don't give a shit about. The reality is that's what the message was. That's what people take away from it. You've been in the PUA game for a long time before you were MGTOW. You've been making videos for a long time. You've spoken publicly for a long time. So you know exactly what the fuck I'm saying is true. So, we can cut to the chase. And I don't care how you retract it. I don't care how you phrase it. I don't care if you say it was in the heat of the moment or DDJ was a dick and I got angry. I kick me under the bus, whatever. Retract the statement. Be a man. Be honest. Tell the truth. Don't try to reframe it. Everybody has the videos. The videos are mirrored in multiple locations now. And they've been downloaded in case we need them down the road. And I'll get into that in a minute. But walk away from it. And with that in mind, the other issue that I think is important to address. Yesterday, I was told there was a live stream where about 2 hours into a 7-hour live stream, MGTOW 101 had said that apparently he had a conversation with Angry MGTOW, and there was some talk that Angry MGTOW may want to sue me for disparaging the red pill coin. So with that in mind, I need to say this, and I need to make sure it's very clear. And Oslo MGTOW, if you're here, this is where you want to timestamp it. Disclaimer. If you're legally ignorant, you may want to cut out this next part and show it to your attorney and allow them to translate it for you. Okay? Because I'll tell you what, if I get doxxed or sued, or both, or either one, let me tell you how this plays out. First and foremost, I'm going to countersue. You see, when I called out the red pill coin, ICO, as a scam, I don't know if people got it or not, but the second that I did that, that put me under whistleblower protections because it's a potential crime for a variety of reasons that I've already laid out in other videos. Because it's illegal to retaliate against a whistleblower, and that opens you up to a civil suit. Also, I could countersue for defamation because I'm a published author. As you can see on the upper right-hand side of the screen, hashtag shill alert, the feminist lie by pen name Bob Lewis. It was a best-selling Amazon book. First 2 weeks it was out, and it's been in the top 10. If those sales go down because of this, that's damages. More importantly, slander. And I'll tell you what, if this goes to court and I have to defend myself, I am going to fucking add as many fucking tort claims as I can that will not get me sanctioned for frivolous conduct. So you need to be aware. Now, secondly, the other important thing that needs to be addressed. Since Angry MGTOW kept the red pill coin ICO crew anonymous, my countersuit would name lots of John Does. Now, let's take this a step farther. I can name anyone as a defendant who case law, this is federal and state case law, I can name anyone as a defendant as what's called an agent in fact, which means anyone who's actually acted in alliance with Angry MGTOW, Chris Cantu, the Cantu Cuck Squad, and all those people involved, they all get named as John Doe defendants. And unfortunately, by necessity, this also includes MGTOW 101. But more importantly, this also includes anyone who has had a financial relationship with these people related to the red pill coin ICO and their marital communities. Let me be clear. If any of these people is married, your husband or your wife gets named as well. All I need to show to add these parties as defendants is they acted in concert with Angry MGTOW. That's actually the definition of conspiracy. Further, if I name these people at John Doe as John Does, and they choose to remain hidden, and they choose not to respond to the suit, I'll move for default judgment against anyone and their marital community. And then once I have that default judgment in hand, then I will do discovery for the rest of the people in the case to identify them and to enforce my judgment. Now, let's talk a little bit about jurisdiction, just in case there's any confusion. I'm in the United States. Now, if for some reason, because I'm in Washington State, if for some reason they filed this suit against me in state court, I would transfer it to federal court under both subject matter jurisdiction and diversity jurisdiction. Because, specifically, my countersuit defendants will probably be international in scope. Now, the best part about filing in federal court, and for those people who don't know, is that the federal court allows punitive damages. That means I can ask for something stupid like $50 million, basically, to say, fuck you. Now, let's take this a step further. Because I live in Washington State and because I would be the defendant in this bullshit suit that these people want to target me with, that means that the Ninth Federal Circuit Court is the court that hears this. Now, for those of you who haven't been paying attention to anything outside of YouTube, the Ninth Circuit Court is the court that keeps ruling against Donald Trump. Okay? These people, the Ninth Circuit Court is the most liberal court in the United States. And this is the court that they're going to have to fight me in. So you got to ask yourself, how unbiased do you think the Ninth Circuit Court or the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is going to be against a MGTOW or Red Pill Coin or alt-right or anybody who's even linked with that, especially after that Forbes article? And more importantly, because I'm a person of color, because I'm a Latino, because I'm, I mean, really? Do you really think you're going to get a fair hearing here? Really? I mean, this is the place that you wanted to fuck with me. Now, I haven't even started yet. So let's talk about what discovery looks like. So you file your suit, I file my countersuit. We're now in federal court. We are in a lawsuit. You've doxed me and you're like, ha ha ha, we got DDJ, we know who he is. Well, guess what? Now it's my turn. When discovery phase happens, because Angry MGTOW didn't name anybody on the Red Pill Coin team except for Chris Cantu as the chief operating officer, I am going to have a fucking field day with discovery. I'll be able to issue court-ordered subpoenas to Google, to Twitter, to Facebook, to YouTube, to Discord, and to every other social media platform against anyone who acted as an agent in fact of Angry MGTOW, Chris Cantu, the Red Pill Coin ICO, or anybody else who attempted to support them or who has repeated these false allegations. Further, I'll be able to identify everyone once I get that information. And by the time discovery is over, I'll know everything about you. And because it's a lawsuit, here's a little spoiler alert for you. It's public record, which means it's not doxing, you dipshits. This means that if you ever got in trouble with the law, if you were ever previously accused of fraud or any other bad behavior, not only am I going to know, everybody else is too. Because you see, if I get doxed, I'm not afraid of the life I've lived. I don't have a criminal record. I've never been accused of committing fraud against anybody, so it's not going to happen now. And I'll tell you what, there won't be shit you can do to stop it. And then, once it's all on the public record, I'll link soft copies on the internet to ensure everybody else knows who you are and what you did. And again, because it's a lawsuit, it's not doxing. And to be clear, just because YouTube deletes videos, they keep an archive. They have to. And not only have I downloaded and archived every video that's disparaged me, TFM, and our sponsors, but I'll be able to get them from those other platforms as well. And guess what? Every one of those videos will be presented as evidence against you. More importantly, and this is for the rest of the people that are out there, if you've witnessed these acts, if you've left comments on these YouTube videos, if you've been in Discord servers where these people have said, oh, we're going to dox DDJ, or we're going to go ahead and we're going to go after him, or DDJ's a pedophile, guess what? You're a witness. And I can identify witnesses, and I can contact Discord, and I can contact YouTube, and I can find out who these witnesses are, because they are absolutely imperative to my case as potential witnesses. And that information, your identities, those of you who are in these servers, those of you who are making these comments, that will be part of public record as well. All right? So you need to know that, because, I mean, there are lots of witnesses here. We're talking potentially thousands of people, in addition to the cucks who thought they wanted to take it there. Now, let me tell you the best part. If I have to do this, I'm going to reach out to the dollhouse. I'm going to reach out to Anchors Away, and I'm going to request that they appoint me as interim board member so that I become an agent of them as well. And I will basically forego any compensation. And what that allows me to do is that allows me to enter the case as another counter plaintiff on behalf of the dollhouse and another counter plaintiff on behalf of Anchors Away. This way, they don't need to hire an attorney, and I don't get hit for unlawful practice of law because I'm a paralegal, because basically I'd be a triple plaintiff. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you choose to fuck with me, you should know what's coming. Because I can do all of this pretty easily. I have the legal templates to make this shit go really quick, and I still maintain the majority of my legal contacts in the legal field, not just in Washington State, but around the country. And you need to understand this from a dollars and cents standpoint. By the time the discovery phase is over, before trial, each one of the named John Doe defendants and each one of the defendants who's been identified, you guys are probably going to be expending at least $100,000 in attorney fees before the federal court. Because I will leave no stone unturned. And anybody who attempts to resist discovery or they ignore the subpoenas, I will file a motion for court to have you sanctioned, which will include financial damages, driving your costs up even farther every time you defy discovery. So with that said, given the number of people who've already spread lies about me, Turd Flinging Monkey, and our sponsors, I'm thinking, trial's going to be at least 3 weeks of testimony alone in front of a federal judge who's probably a feminist. That by itself is going to run each one of the defendants between $25,000 and $50,000 alone. And I haven't even gotten into the fees you dipshits are going to incur if we end up having to go to the Federal Court of Appeals. Also, if you go down this path, you better make damn sure that your attorneys watch all of my videos. And if you've watched them already, watch them again. And your attorneys will see that I have purposely set up every one of those videos as legal claims. I did this so that any litigator worth his salt will know that I outlined an arguable whistleblower retaliation counterclaim in case I was sued. And with that in mind, you got to understand that if you're alt-right and you're here or you're listening to this stream and you're unaffiliated with Angry MGTOW, well, because I understand that I've been the target of some attacks from you, like deplatforming, doxing threats, 4chan, and all that, my whistleblower retaliation claims are just as legit against you. Because if I have to defend myself against Angry MGTOW, I'm going to paint it as an alt-right racist attack. So if you guys in the alt-right have the opportunity to talk some sense into Angry MGTOW, the Cuck Squad, or any of these other dumbasses before I decide to go potato harvesting, I encourage you to do so. Further, should this continue and I get doxxed, and we don't go to court, you best believe I'll be publishing a book about this entire affair, the red pill coin scam, the false allegations, naming names, calling out the Cantu Cuck Squad and the alt-right cucks who targeted me in what appears to be retaliation for my videos regarding the red pill coin, the Kraut server, etc. And maybe I'll call it Bigoted Cucks Witch Hunt a Man Going His Own Way, a True Story. I guess my point is this. If you go down this path, it will be biblical. Now, like I said in the beginning of this public service announcement, if you're one of these dipshits who's seriously thinking about legal action against me, cut this clip out. Let your prospective attorneys see it when you meet with them so that they intimately understand what's waiting for them. You see, it's been my experience that the scariest thing in life isn't the unknown. It's knowing what's coming for you and knowing that you can't do jack shit to stop it. And I want to make something abundantly clear. To reiterate, this is not a threat. This is a public service announcement of what will happen should Angry MGTOW or anyone else who's falsely accused me of anything in retaliation to whistleblowing about the Red Pill Coin ICO scam. And with that in mind, now there's been a threat of legal action, I'll be no longer taking any questions about the Red Pill Coin, Angry MGTOW, the false allegations of doxing, or the false allegations of promoting child abuse that were made in retaliation for my whistleblowing. So with that in mind, I just encourage you, if you're part of the cuck squad, if you're part of the dumbasses that think that they want to go there, I have just outlined what this looks like. And I guarantee you that if you talk to an attorney about it, he's going to say that the cost and the time and the drama involved that I said was probably conservative. So, with that in mind, all I can say is that you should probably just go play hide and go fuck yourself, because I can take this anywhere it needs to go. Now, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and move on to our guest who has been patiently waiting. Sunrise, again, welcome to the stream. This is the part where you unmute yourself.
I'm here. I was working on my listening abilities. Yeah, thanks again, DDJ. I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, so I came to MGTOW about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I didn't start making MGTOW content until this past June. But what I would say for me, I really keep it simple when I approach MGTOW. I look forward at my life, and I'm only 24 right now, so obviously there are a lot of life experiences ahead. But I think of the potential pitfalls, the potential dangers that are out there, not just for me, but have been corroborated through the lives of other men. And I think about, what steps do I need to take to reach my goals? What things do I need to avoid? What do I remove from my life? And that kind of was my MGTOW thesis. And a lot of the ideas resonated with me in terms of minimalism, in terms of just morality a little bit. And I know that we'll probably get into the conversation about the videos that I make regarding Christianity. Let
me cut you off here a little bit. So let me ask you this: was there like a defining moment where you just decided I was going MGTOW? Because I mean, nobody gets here; they don't just MGTOW's never anybody's first stop. So what kind of got you into MGTOW? I mean, do you have a good cuck story? Are there dead hookers involved?
Oh man, I was a cuck. I was a cuck before. This is a fact. You can put this on record. I'm dwelling on making a series about when Sunrise Hoodie was a blue pill guy. But just to put it out there that I'm a normal guy. But in terms of there being one catastrophic moment, I can't say there was a catastrophic moment. I nearly got married at 22. That nearly happened. And then during that whole time, I was just in this constant battle of cognitive dissonance about the decision that I was going to make. And I would say that I had always had an aversion, for whatever reason, to relationships, to this idea of this Western, very Disney, Hollywood-esque idea of romance and getting married. And it always was within me. I saw Fight Club at 14, and that kind of gripped me. But
Fight Club is such a hardcore movie too. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, at 14, I remember seeing that, and the message resonating with me. And although it was a very austere movie, and it is viewed as kind of nihilistic, there was a lot of freedom offered in that approach, and in that nihilism, and in that stripping of everything that's unnecessary. And so I think just ideas continually, welled up within me. My environment, the people that were around me. My sister ended up having a kid at 20, and she was not married. It put her in a tough spot for 11 years, and the turmoil within my family to deal with that, and everybody doing as best they can. But it was like, I don't know if I want to be a part of that. I don't know if I want to be a part of that. I was 13 at the time.
Well, I can totally get that. I mean, you know, and it's interesting
struggle.
because I remember in the beginning of Fight Club, I thought the thing that was most telling to me and the thing that drew me in right in the beginning was that part where he was just such a consumer and he was like a consumer cuck.
Well, yeah, I mean, the part that really resonated with me as well was that conversation that he was having at Lou's Tavern. They were over a couple pitchers of beer, and he asks him what a duvet is, and he's like, I don't know, a comforter. And, you know, maybe there's a more specific answer that could be provided there, but the fact that he even had an idea of what that is, why do we need to know that? Why is that essential information? We're here as men in a bar. It just kind of represents not only the consumerism, but this connection between androgyny and consumerism and materialism and feminism and the emasculation of men. They're all very much connected. And I think that subconsciously it was tapping into something that I knew was wrong. I knew it wasn't inherently right. Yeah. So that for me was huge as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get that, you know, and, you know, I also thought it was interesting too, like an interesting commentary about how, you know, basically, that generation was kind of a lost generation and how they were angry about it. And I do agree with you. I think that there's a lot of good lessons about minimalism and stoicism and just, you know, going back to basics that I think are extremely important. And, you know, I'll be honest with you. I've said this before. I said it to other people. And obviously if you've watched DDJ's Inferno, you'll know this. I mean, I was a cuck. I was blue pill. Absolutely I was. So, you know, many of us who come to MGTOW, we all have that red pill awakening, and we all have gone through the process of going from blue pill to red pill, and then from red pill to MGTOW. And I think that, you know, I think it's definitely a journey. So now you started creating content. Talk to me about why you got into content creation. Talk to me about what your channel's kind of focus is, and kind of the niche that you believe your channel fills.
Sure. I always feel like I do an inadequate job of answering this question, but there's just so many influences. I would say,
well, there will be a test later, just so you know.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll also get my Scantron out. I started making content in June this past year. I didn't start consuming MGTOW content. It was probably 9 or 10 months before that. And I studied journalism, and I worked in journalism for a couple of years. And so it's kind of this innate interest of mine to accrue information, to bring information together and to deliver it to people. And so whatever the topic is that I'm passionate about, that is what I want to study. That is what I want to deliver. And so I was listening to guys, not necessarily the huge guys out there, but Immortal Minds, M Crafts, PaulProteus, some even smaller guys. And I was like, you know, I wonder if there is a need for a MGTOW guy that is in his 20s, a MGTOW guy that just got out of college, because college is a whole other arena that I think really needs to be discussed for young men, whether or not they should go there, what the concerns are about being in college in the first place. And so I saw these needs. I saw that need. I didn't see much conversation. There's a few guys that allude to it about MGTOW and things in Christianity that very much support MGTOW and very much are they go hand in hand in a lot of situations. And then I also just I am interested in kind of just counseling and offering insight and talking about ideas. I've probably responded to over 800 emails within 4 or 5 months. And I make the amount of time that goes into these things, I probably make like $4 an hour, honestly. But that is another passion of mine too, just kind of having an intellectual outlet, because if I don't, you know, I go to work, I'm also pursuing a master's. I don't have the opportunity to really do something that I have control over. And because MGTOW was there and this opportunity to share ideas, I did it because it was not only an interest out there, but there was a need for those various areas.
Right. You know, and it's funny you mentioned that, because it's something that TFM and I've talked about a lot as well. And I know Human has said the same thing, is it, you know, people will reach out and via email or private message, and they'll be like, wow, you've had such a great impact in my life, or, you know, I need your help on this particular issue. And if I have time to address it, I definitely will. I mean, obviously complex legal issues, go find an attorney. I don't have time, but I
Right.
think, but it's really nice to actually know that we're actually having an impact on the community. We're actually helping people, and we're making lives better. And I think that's huge. That's absolutely, it doesn't matter what kind of MGTOW content creator you are. If you've got people who are saying, look, you've helped me in my life, even if you're a content creator I disagree with, that's a good thing, because, at least you're reaching some of these people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's very important to have that outlet where, especially if you're, for men that are beaten down in different areas in life, and to come here and to have an idea presented that actually it resonates with people. It makes your ideas and your thoughts that you carry throughout your day, it makes them feel more organic, more real, actually, because they're not gonna resonate with the people you work with. A lot of times, they're not gonna resonate with anything that you see in the mainstream media. It's gonna be a very isolative environment, and for me, I'm more introverted, and so I'm very much I'm always thinking internally. I'm internalizing things. I work methodically, and so it was an outlet for me to see, like, oh, these thoughts that I'm having, they're not just ramblings within my inner conscience. They're ramblings that other people are feeling, and that's the beauty about MGTOW too, is there's this opportunity for positive influence. There's opportunity for understanding and creating a framework and a groundwork for the next decision that you have to make in your life. And, obviously MGTOW is heavy on talking about female nature. That makes sense. It's heavy on talking about marriage. Each creator has their own niche, but
exactly.
But right. But the thing for me is that positivity, improving your life, self-improvement.
Right. I agree with that completely. Now, you take it from a religious perspective. I know, like, you do like your Sunday sermons and things like that, and you use examples from the Bible. Talk a little bit about how the Bible has impacted your MGTOW messaging.
All right. So it impacts the way I choose to live. And if it impacts the way I live, then subsequently, it should impact how I speak. It should impact the messages that I deliver, how I represent myself on YouTube. And so I think that there's that. And you see that in my Sunday sermons. It's also, there are certain things in the Bible that touch upon red scenarios of the Jezebel, scenarios of the harlot, scenarios of just one of my favorite proverbs. It's better to live on the corner of a roof than with a quarrelsome wife. Things like that. So
right.
That I think it's just kind of a red pill stash that organically, even if I wasn't identifying with the Bible and my messages, I think it would be important to bring up. But I also saw there being a need for that within the MGTOW community. I saw upon making my first MGTOW video related to the Bible, it was a Samson and Delilah video. Basically, most people know that story, that narrative about Samson. He's the strongest man. He gets seduced by Delilah, gets lied to by Delilah, and loses his strength, dies. It's kind of a metaphor for so many situations and scenarios that men have been in. I know I myself had been in. I've fell prey to that myself a couple of times. And so I was like, okay, how can I pair this in the message that I put forth? Is there a way I can weave this in with a useful narrative? And it just started from there. And I don't always talk about female nature, the Jezebel spirit, or so forth, borderline personality. I also talk about, like today, just being able to quell the anxieties within your life and taking it from that spiritual sense. So that is kind of an overview there.
That makes sense. So let me ask you this. I noticed that, a lot of times there's a lot of MGTOW content creators out there who focus on what to walk away from. In other words, what to avoid. Talk to me about, like, finding purpose in your life. Talk to me about, those types of things, free from gynocentric influence and that kind of thing. What are your thoughts about that as it relates to the content you make and just, your own personal life?
Yeah. So this actually harkens back to another PaulProteus video. I know we discussed him recently, but he talks about, I think, MGTOW as freedom from, and then subsequently MGTOW freedom to. So you go through this phase of dealing with past traumas. You go through this phase of being enraged, maybe red pill rage, maybe it's just a red pill depression, whatever it is. But at a certain point, if you're able to get through that, what do you do with your life? What do you do with your time? What are your interests? And so for me, I didn't really go through this angered phase. I kind of went through a loss of identity. I was very wrapped up in what I could do for my partner, or the person I was dating, building that life potentially. And I was like, what are my hobbies? What are my interests? What do I want to do to impact people? And so, like, for me, it's, MGTOW, it affords you a vast amount of time relative to the person that is trying to raise a family, that is trying to pay for that mortgage, that is trying to pay for the car. Whether or not you want those things, that's your choice. But that usually goes along with marriage. And so what do you do with that time? And for me, I look at it this way. I see, maybe early on in my career, I don't have to feel pressured to take a job out of my interests, out of my passion, in order to make enough money to keep that girl around, because she's going to expect me to have a certain dollar amount coming into the bank each month. Conversely, I can take a lesser paying job. I can take my time. I can work on those skills. I can build connections and networks and not feel that same rush and pressure. And so that's kind of what I do with, that's how I viewed it. I said, okay, where can I put my energy? Where are these business risks that I can take? What are these career risks? Can I move? I have more flexibility to move. And really the opportunities are endless. I'm a voracious reader. I work out a bunch. I played baseball in college. And so those were kind of indelible parts of me. And I get pissed at people when I don't have time to do those things, as much as it is. Right. It's just the way it is. So right. that was just the crux of it. Mm-hmm. And well, I hope that. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, that addresses it. And it's kind of funny and interesting too, because you hit on some things that are important for those of you guys out there that maybe you're new to the MGTOW community, or you haven't really been here very long. There are a lot of content creators who've been around for a long time who have great content. One of my favorite creators, Sunrise Hoodie, mentioned him, is PaulProteus. PaulProteus' video, the one he's talking about, is freedom from and freedom to. It's something that TFM talks about. In addition to that, I think that when it comes to a lot of the things about your life and how you live it, I think that it's important to have some balance in your life. You have to exercise. You have to take care of yourself and be healthy. You can't just be a fucking couch potato. And in addition to that, I think it's important to, to really read and to educate yourself and to consciously read, not just articles or, Twitter tweets or things like that, but like legitimate books. I think it's important to educate yourself and expose yourself to a wide variety of things. And the other thing I think that you hit on the head, Sunrise, was the financial freedom. I know a lot of guys who they're MGTOW, they make decent money. They may not make huge money, but they make decent money. But they live very minimalistic lifestyles. Their expenses for a year may run $15,000, $18,000 a year, and they're banking 50, 75% of their wages. And I know one guy just reached out to me the other day. He was asking for investment advice, and I sent him to TFM for some of it, but I gave him the initial advice I knew. But the guy was like 24 years old, 25 years old, something like that. And he had over $100,000 invested in different investments. And, he lives off of $15,000 a year because you just don't need it. You don't need to, you don't need to go out and buy the brand new car when you can buy the used car that works just as well. You can live in a minimalistic fashion and not have to purchase everything, just like Fight Club, right? We buy stuff that we don't need, and we're married to all our belongings. And, having what we need is absolutely important. And so, but having, we have a lot of what we want or what society tells us we want, and it's not necessarily the best things for us. So having that option to go through and have these different things, I think, is important. So I think at the end of the day, I think that one of the things we can look at is, I'm a big fan of history. and I've read the Bible a little bit, and I'm definitely no Bible scholar, but we can learn from those who came before us, and we can learn from our history, both within the MGTOW community, online and off. You know, like I said, a lot of history books, a lot of information that's out there, a lot of knowledge that's out there. And I think that, you know, helping everybody to understand the value of those things, I think, is extremely important. Because, you know, we can only chest beat so much before we just start repeating the same old rhetoric and everything else. But, you know, with that in mind, let me ask you this. We're going to kind of jump. I'm kind of rambling a little bit, so let's jump to a different subject. What are your thoughts on the red pill rage and your personal experience with it, how you overcame it, and what is your advice to men undergoing red pill rage?
Mm-hmm. Kind of the way I feel rage is it's basically fueled by I see this situation where the man put everything into this woman. The man is thinking linearly. He's thinking, I do A, I do B, it should equal C. You know, she should stay around, she should be faithful, whatever it is. So that kind of is the typical red pill narrative set for me. And that doesn't happen. He doesn't see that come to fruition. And she leaves, she cheats, she goes thotteria on the world, and you're left completely bemused. You don't know what's going on. And so that red pill rage is fueled by this injustice. This what happened here? What I feel like, you know, there was some slight, you know, in this agreement. And so the red pill rage is, I think, getting over the realization that you know, recognizing that there likely was some injustice there, but also seeing your own fault and seeing taking accountability. And I think that the more that you take accountability and assess that, you know, I can prevent this from happening, you're going to be less concerned with the red pill rage. If you think about future pursuits, future endeavors, then you're going to be less concerned with the mistake that you made in the past. Obviously, I don't like saying this that much and generalizing too much, because I have not been through, I know the battle that you went to get the custody over your children, something like that, you know, would be grounds for red pill rage, so to speak. But that is kind of how I view it. And I say this partially because the majority of the guys that pass the red pill rage, or they're in the middle of it and they're like 18, 19, 20, it's kind of fickle relationship situations. My personal experience with the red pill rage, I would say that it was during my relationships. The reason I say this is because I was red pill in my thinking about finances and my thinking about the purpose of relationships. I was very anti, you know, love, so to speak, romance, so to speak, all these things that and it was just, she's basically with me right now because I'm the best option. But during the relationship, I developed an awareness that I didn't have a good backbone, and that I was essentially a nice guy. And what happens when you become that person is that it creates resentment, because you are feeling things that you're not talking about. You're not standing up for things that you're feeling. And so I just kept doing that. I kept feeding that for months. Nothing was changing until I just didn't care anymore, and, you know, finally broke things off. So I kind of got rid of it. It was kind of a red pill haze after that, though. I didn't really know what direction to take. And MGTOW elucidated kind of that direction. It made sense of the decisions and the occurrences. So I don't know if I do. I don't usually talk about the red pill rage for myself a lot, because I don't know if it would be an experience that would resonate with a lot of people.
Well, I think that with the younger crowd, the reason I was asking about it is because I know you don't have children, you've never been married, and a lot of people come to MGTOW from different walks of life. I mean, sure, there are the guys out there who've been divorce raped, or who've gone through court, you know, hell in family court like I have. But then there's just as many guys out there who, you know, they're younger guys. There's a lot of younger guys coming to MGTOW who've never been married, who've never had kids, They've experienced female hypergamy firsthand. They've experienced a lot of the female narcissism firsthand, the entitlement, or they've watched their friends go through it. They've watched their family members go through it. Especially like with the hashtag Me Too stuff and the Title IX witch hunts. And the whole the whole domestic violence protection order stuff. I mean, all those things really, I think, drive smart men to really consider MGTOW and what their relationships are with women. So I guess that was one of the reasons that I kind of wanted you to bring it up. But I think that, you touch on an important point, and that is that, you're in a relationship with a woman and you're doing all these things for her. But the question that I think that a lot of people forget to ask, but people ask when they're newly red pill, is, what does she do for me? Is she doing anything for me other than moisturizing my dick? I mean, what does she bring to my life? What is she contributing? And for most people, they just don't know. And it's kind of funny because, like, I've dated a little bit between my marriages and while I was single, and I would ask women, what do you bring to the table? Other than a $4 piece of pussy, what do you bring to the table? And they don't have an answer, or the answer is related to romantic relationship, which basically ends up being sex or some element of sex beyond that. And none of them ever say commitment. None of them ever say loyalty. None of them ever say open and honesty. They all live compartmentalized lives. They all want to not let you see their phone or let you know what the fuck's going on with them. So they keep you in the dark. And again, they're always keeping those beta orbiters around so they can jump to the next one because, like, she's never yours. It's just your turn.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, I think that that's important. But, you also touched on something else too. And I think we really need to kind of reiterate this and drive this to home for a lot of people, especially for the younger MGTOW out there. And that is that once you get past the red pill rage, you go into that haze about, what do I do? Where do I go? And how do I find direction in my life? I mean, how does that relate to your religious involvement? Did that help you get through it at all?
Yeah, it really did. It helped me. It helped me not condemn myself, I guess, for the decisions I made. It allowed for being okay and acceptance of the decision I made in the past and using it positively. But I touched upon this a couple Sundays ago, and it was, Paul is a writer in the New Testament, and he's very direct. He uses active voice in how he writes, and I appreciate that. And he talks about the fact that a married man is concerned about pleasing his wife. He's concerned about the world. He's concerned about essentially material goods, because if he doesn't have material goods, he doesn't have her. That's just the way it is. And knowing that was comforting to me. I was like, okay, well, I'm better off, essentially. And he says, well, if you're not tied down, do not go and pursue, because it's worse. Trust me, you're going to be facing many trials, and that's said directly. And knowing that was, as I said, comforting, because it allowed me to accept the past. It allowed me to look at the future at that point. And I think that a lot of MGTOW men, I was having a conversation with a guy, I think he's 22, and he's feeling pressured to marry from his parents. They really want grandkids, that old typical comment situation. And I'm telling him, this red pill information now. He's never been in a relationship, so he's lacking a little bit of that emotional drive to go MGTOW. In a sense, being scarred can fuel you in that way. But it gave me a reason to move forward, because a lot of guys like him, they're not able to accept the past yet. They're not able to say, wow, I don't want to be a part of that. Now I can actually realize that there was a reason to go forward. And this just comes back to, what I said before. It's a very simple concept. Knowing what Paul said right there, that the world is going to bring you more trials than if you were single. I don't have to be worried about those things as I'm going to my work. I can be more functional at work. I don't have to worry about those things as I'm improving something in my life that will be unique, that could possibly benefit other people. You know, you have more mental energy stored up. You have more physical energy stored up, emotional energy stored up. You don't know where you can use it, but that might show itself if you give yourself enough time. So that verse right there was kind of my thesis, you know. And you know, he himself was single. You know, he traveled around
Right.
the ancient world. So
right, and I think that, you know, it's interesting you bring that up, because I can tell you that, you know, when I know that, like, when I knew that my wife was unfaithful, I became insecure in all things. You know, I'm a relatively confident guy, and I mean, you know, I know the four corners of my abilities, but I found that as I started realizing that she was unfaithful, as I started realizing she was lying to me or concealing things from me, or trying to compartmentalize her dealings with me in order to be dishonest by omission and be deceptive, it created a level of insecurity. And when you have that insecurity, that carries over to your work, that carries over to your professional life, it carries over to the things that you hope and dream for, and it's paralyzing. And I say this from personal experience. And so I think that you hit the nail on the head, is that, you know, when you don't have to deal with that, it makes life a lot easier. Now, I know that you're an active Christian, and one of the things that I wanted to touch on before we headed to the Q&A, so have you had a chance? So I've been reading well, let me just go back. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show was because I think that it's important to really drive home the fact that I think that there should be some spirituality in every man's life. Now, whether you're Judeo-Christian, or whether you practice Buddhist meditation, or whether or not you self-meditate. I know TFM has this thing called active meditation, where he just keeps busy and it allows him to think about things and focus on things. I think those things are important, but I also believe that you should have some kind of spirituality in addition to, you know, exercise and education and having a bit of a social life. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on. But the other side of it is that because you're a Christian MGTOW, and your channel primarily has a MGTOW message from a Christian perspective, what are your thoughts on the feminist entryism into the church and on complementarianism?
So, speaking on my personal experience, I haven't been a regular attendee of church I've been off and on for the past 3 or 4 years. And one of the reasons is because of this increasingly diluted message. It's not about the individual anymore. It's a very almost socialist message, where it's like we're pursuing egalitarianism solely. The church is viewed as a tool for reparations. Guilt is fueling our motives in the community. It's not about improving the individual's life. It's not about the spiritual growth within the person. It's about, we're a bunch of middle-aged suburban Protestant people. Nothing against them inherently, but we should be guilty because of our status. So what can we do? It's like a liberation theology is what I would connect it to, with this feminist theology that has entered into the church, and what it has done is has diluted the message. I think that inherently there is a gravitas behind a message in the church delivered by a man that I have not seen. I just, in my objective assessment, in a female pastor, and I think there's a reason for that. And
well, yeah, because women and men prefer a male leader. I mean, they've done studies on this, and not even in church, but I mean, in general, that women and men both prefer male leaders because they're more confident and they trust them more. So yeah, but I apologize for interjecting. Go on.
No, yeah, and the fact that I agree with that's good. If you say that within a church now, you know, if you were to have a deacon, or if you were to have somebody of authority say that in a church, they would be gone. There's no room for this discussion on that, because the church has now become infiltrated by feminism, and it has become infiltrated by political correctness, and it's become infiltrated by people not willing to look at things and actually offer a truthful answer. and postmodernism has also seeped in as well. I was not a Bible student. I didn't go to college for that, but I took philosophy courses and Bible courses. And my first one ever was taught by a former female pastor. And she was previously married and then had 2 kids and then was professing to be a homosexual, and then was teaching me feminist theology as my first Bible course in college. And, that was what is going on here? But that is a microcosm of essentially what's happening in the church, and,
well, and just to interject here, what Sunrise Hoodie is just described is a perfect example of feminist entryism into the church. This is classic Marxist entryistic tactics. So I apologize, Sunrise. Go on.
No. And for me right there, that was one of my biggest red pill moments. I was in constant, I took multiple classes within that department. I almost had a minor, and I was in constant theological battle with a lot of these people. I was just sitting in, taking notes. We'd go through Kierkegaard and we'd go through Augustine and all these people. But, it was entryism right there. I saw it, and it felt diluted. And that was I was about an 18 or 19, but it is a microcosm of the philosophy within the church. And it's just viewed now as, another history book that, we're just going to put it over here, especially in colleges. And, and if you're considering, no, just ignore it. Do never consider taking really going to college for that type of study. That's a nightmare.
Yeah. And now, have you had a chance? So like I said, one of the longtime bloggers I read when I want to get some red pill Christian knowledge is Dalrock. Have you had a chance to look at him yet?
Yeah. So I went on his website a couple, I think last night, and I kind of got caught up with it a little bit. And from my perspective, it was, this is a very Cliff Notes perspective. It seemed like I appreciated his objectivity and the fact that he was not proselytizing, which is important. And when you're speaking from the biblical perspective, and I don't know much about him. Like I said, I am kind of slow to ride the wave sometimes. But I read a lot of apologetics. That's kind of where I would probably read the most. But I looked, I think, a couple of the subheadings that I think are really important. Obviously touching on feminism within the church. I think he touched upon, I think just, the one I was reading was about complementarianism, and he talked about guys like Wayne Grudem and John Piper, and how they were like, this is how our marriage works. And they kind of presented this utopian view of marriage within complementarianism. So that's kind of where my my exploration of his blog ended, though, last night.
Okay. And just for the audience, can you kind of give like a very, very general definition of complementarianism so people know what we're talking about?
It's not very commonly used. I don't think, unless you're kind of looking, you're also in maybe the more social commentary, political commentary part of theology. But I guess my understanding would be that it's just, as the word says, the husband and the wife, they serve certain purpose and they complement each other, kind of like a yin yang element, I guess you could say, to make a marriage productive, so to speak, I guess.
Right. And just so we're all on the same page, my understanding of it is that basically complementarianism has been used to attack traditional patriarchy within the church, and it's been used by feminists to infiltrate the church. And so now, probably for the last 15 or 20 years at least, complementarianism has, it pretty much runs most organized religion now. And even the NIV Bible is talking about, I just read an article the other day, the NIV Bible is talking about removing the word father from the Bible and instead put parents, because basically fathers are demonized throughout the feminist sphere. And it ends up being, again, it's another form of entryism, and they're just trying to change history. And it turns into an absolute shit show. And one of the things that really disgusts me is just the huge amount of feminist infiltration within religion. And I'm not a consistent churchgoer or anything like that. But the last few times that I've walked into a church, again, I'm going to dovetail what Sunrise says, is that, there are female church leaders there, and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Like, I've taken theological classes. I was raised Catholic. I was an altar server in the church. No, I have no priest experience, for those that are smart asses out there. The particular priests I were around didn't like little boys, or if they did, they didn't like little Mexican kids. So I guess, score one for the team there. But at the same token, I spent a lot of time. I went to I went to a private school. I learned, the Bible and that kind of thing. And there was none of this whole, you should submit to your wife bullshit. It was very traditionally patriarchal. And when I say patriarchal, I'm not talking about the feminist redefinition, okay, where they're trying to like make up the ghost story about how, there's a patriarchy out there in the Western world that supposedly oppresses women. That's not the ghost story I'm talking about. I'm actually talking about traditional patriarchy. So... yeah,
the patriarchal ghost that's looming from coast to coast. I know it's it's a scary concept.
exactly
Drifting out there in the abyss. But that's very much how it's presented. So you get these verses in the Bible that are like, husbands love your wives, respect and submit to your husbands. And when that is said once, and that is not inherently a like Stalin-esque concept right there, but apparently that's how it is when it is framed in that way, and it's used in this light that it is this domineering patriarchy within the church, and that we need to, like you said, remove the father from the Bible. If that's the case, then you should stop reading the NIV. That's a whole other conversation, but it goes back to this guilt creation. It goes back to this guilt creation within the church that it's trying to remove verses like that. It's trying to, the very common narrative and the common presentation of the Bible now is that it we want feminist interpretation, feminist theology, that those are very popular courses subsequently now within if you're going to seminary, or if you're even taking Bible study courses at churches that you're affiliated with. And the fact that this is occurring was yet another reason why I wanted to create this channel, because the church, maybe we'll touch on this, but the church essentially breeds a lot of cucks, and they think that as long as the husband does this and builds the house that the wife is going to come and live in, like they used to do in BC, then it's going to be right. It's going to be okay. I'm going to love her. She's going to submit to me. This is 2018. I don't see this happening right now. And the divorce rates are showing within churches as well. It's not like they've got anything figured out. So.
Right. Well, and it's kind of interesting that you bring that up too, because, it used to be that the churches opposed divorce completely. And then once feminist infiltration happened, then all of a sudden, destroying the family, shitting on the father, and treating him like a second-class citizen, while turning the divorced mom who cheated on him to get rid of him as a power princess of some kind. That's not traditional church teaching in any legitimate Christian religion. Again, they can reprint the Bible all they want, but the reality is that doesn't change the original messaging, and there's enough of us out there that still remember that messaging to really understand where it came from. And it's really a sad state of affairs that gynocentrism has so completely infected traditionalists, and infected the church, and infected the conservative movement, that because you have the traditionalists who are the gynocentrics on the right, and you have the feminists who are the gynocentrics on the left, and they're both doing the same things. They're both doing the same playbook, and it's just really, it's a sad state of affairs. And it's one of the reasons that I always say, don't commit, don't cohabitate, and don't marry any of these women, because feminists destroyed, and again with the gynocentrics, I'm referring to them as well. They destroyed the social contract between men and women, and made it, with their war on marriage, made it so that it is literally impossible to have long-term relationships that are meaningful without having that gynocentric influence. And now, I'm not saying that every marriage will fail. I want to make sure that's abundantly clear. But I'm also not saying nay Walt either. I just think that there are many people out there. I mean, marriage is like anything else. It's both a business and it's an emotional investment, but you get what you invest in. And the problem is that because of hypergamy, because feminist laws have made unrestrained hypergamy a thing, and they've diminished and criminalized male dominance, that everything is out of balance in relationships. And so as a result, everything just turns to shit, including Christianity. So, I really appreciate the work that you do. And while we may not be of the whole same denomination, I do believe that some type of spirituality, and I do meditate occasionally as well, and some kind of spirituality, regardless of what your spiritual beliefs are, I think are important to maintain a healthy life, especially as a MGTOW, especially as a man going your own way. You should have, that aspect of balance. And that's something that we never talk about in the MGTOW community. We never talk about how do we get those spiritual needs met? How do we get that spiritual enlightenment? How do we get that, those things? Because, then I think about spirituality, whether or not you're a Buddhist or you practice Shinto, or you're just, or you're Christian, or you're Jewish. And no, I'm not Jewish. Sorry, guys. But, whatever your religion is, I think it's one of those things that we don't talk about it enough, because religion and those beliefs, they give us hope. They give us the will outside of ourselves, for those of us who need it, to achieve and to move on when everything else says give up. And then once you get through that hump, once you get through that dark place, that crucible, you come out the other side a lot more resilient. I just posted an article on Twitter today. There was a guy who survived 16 days on a boat eating cookies and Doritos.
I thought you were going to say bread and water and or manna. I thought you were going to say manna for the Israelites in the desert.
Wait, I didn't. So cookies and Doritos, yo. But my point is he survived 16 days on the ocean. And when you're in those types of situations, when you're truly being tested, that guy had to make some life or death decisions. He had to choose to live. And when you sometimes you have to reach outside yourself to do it. And I'm not necessarily saying that I'm one of those people or that I'm not one of those people. I've done it, but there's also been times where I haven't had to reach outside myself. I actually reached inside myself to get that strength to go out there. But regardless of where you stand on the religious spectrum, whether you're an atheist or whether you're a very evangelical Christian or anybody in between, having some kind of spirituality in your life, or having some kind of thing that you can go through to kind of get that need met, I think is absolutely important. It's just as healthy and as necessary as watching your diet and exercising and reading every day and practicing those healthy things to make your life better. So yes, Sunrise Hoodie, thank you for coming on today. Now we're going to open up the Q&A section. So guys, if you have questions of Sunrise Hoodie or myself, please feel free to tag Lyli or put question to Sunrise Hoodie, or like what Artemis did here. If you've got questions, go ahead and shoot them out. Lyli will collect them. If you have Bukkake chokeslams, feel free to click on those, and those questions will be recorded as well. You can click the little box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and then redeem for question. And then once those questions happen, we can go from there. So with that in mind, Lyli, go ahead and take it away with the first question.
Okay, cool. Hi, guys. So first question from Humanator for DDJ. Completely unrelated, but we're going to go with it. What's the origin of the Bukkake chokeslam?
Oh, my God. So I think Plumber was here for this. Plumber was here. I don't know if Grizzly MGTOW was here, but we were all in Discord one night, and I was not sober. And we were talking shit. And we were just, guys who shooting the shit. And we were talking back and forth, and we're talking about the most ridiculous finishing moves we can come up with. And I, in a fit of inspiration, I was like, yeah, and my signature move is the Bukkake chokeslam, and everybody started laughing about it, and it just happened to stick. But it was, we were in the Monkey Business Discord, just kind of BSing around. And guys, and I would say this too, if you get a chance to get in the Monkey Business Discord, there is a lot of red pill wisdom there. I mean, there's potatoes there as well, but we usually eventually mark them. But yeah, Married Red Pill, you were there. Yep, that's right. You were there. I'm looking at Married Red Pill saying he was in chat. He was there. It's just, again, it was a hilarious conversation, and it was completely inappropriate conversation. And yeah, and Plumber got the septic suplex, or the septic tank suplex, because he's a plumber. So there you go. Yeah, so it was absolutely hilarious. And then people actually made memes about it, and I'm like, oh shit, here we go. So
the wave.
Yeah. The wave happened. It just it was like shit on the side of a toilet bowl. It just stuck. So next question.
All right, next question is from Muskriki. I'm very sorry, I butcher any name everyone gives me. This is for the guest. Thoughts on Orthodox churches? I've been to Coptic, which is apparently Egyptian, and Russian ones, but they seem to have a lot, they seem a lot less cucked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't speak in too much depth about that. I never went. I was raised in the Protestant church. I've been my mom actually was raised Catholic. She no longer practiced, so around 20. But that from the outside, that's what I've observed as well. Because it's more exegesis is essentially emphasized more. It's not this I'm taking the Bible in my English literature class in high school, I'm going to write an essay to get an A, which is what you see a lot of in the Western churches and the Western spin. And obviously this is I don't want to make a black and white statement here, but I think that's part of the reason that you've seen that.
I can actually add something to that as well. I've actually been to Coptic churches are actually Russian. They're like Eastern Orthodox, that type of thing, and Russian Christian. They are definitely, especially Eastern Orthodox Catholics, they never went with Vatican II in the 60s. And so they have a very, very strong patriarchal perspective on some of these things. And a lot of Russian churches are the same way. So yeah, they're far less cucked as far as that's concerned.
Agreed.
Next question.
All right. Next question, also for the guest. What's a good way to find a good men's group, particularly outside of the cucked churches?
Mm-hmm. This is an issue. Actually, this is a big issue because as more and more men don't go to church because of these things, the church is becoming increasingly more women-centric, gynocentric, and so where's the men? Where are the men left? I think right now that you're seeing exactly that. You're seeing men are going to the internet. As much as that's not a satisfactory response in the long term, that's what you're seeing. And I do know of some male-only Bible studies that are offered at the churches that I've attended, but you have to be careful and discerning and seeing, what the theology is even in there. I wish I could offer a better answer for you. It's something that I don't really have an answer for now because it's honestly kind of in its infancy. So you might just have to expose yourself to or put yourself in a situation where you could meet maybe one or two individuals at a church or online, different forums that are out there, and see if you can cultivate something that's positive, because you really have to start from there, because there really are not many resources. I mean, just look at, MGTOW. Obviously, not all my messages are Christian themed, but they when I do make one, it shows that there are men with that same question.
Okay. Next question.
All right. Also for Sunrise, why do you think some online pastors are upset with and feel that the MGTOW philosophy is incongruous with Christian teachings? What do they fear about it?
Well, I mean, if you're going to take the Catholic Church perspective, I mean, Catholic Church vouches for having as many kids as possible. It's very similar to the Mormon Church. The more kids that you have, the larger the congregation is, the more money that can go into the church. So from an economic standpoint, that's one of the reasons reasons. This is, I would say that's more of a Catholic perspective, more that's perpetuated more there than the Protestant church. But I also think, they're married at the time. They're married at the time. I mean, they have wives that listen to what they say. A married pastor is the only pastor that's going to be speaking. Churches do not hire single pastors. It's like, it's a no-no. It's sketchy. It's dangerous. And if obviously you're concerned about your standing in the marriage, that's the message you're also going to get. I mean, if you just think at it at an individual level. And I think that it's an incomplete view of different passages in the Bible, because there really is no place that, I mean, it says, fill the earth, at the very beginning. But Paul's context, population's booming. We have 7 billion people now. We get to 9 billion. We're probably going to hit famine. Things are a little bit different.
Right.
So,
okay. Next question.
Well, that actually ties in beautifully to the next question, because the next question is, how does MGTOW relate to Christianity, given that Christianity pushes for family values, while MGTOW is to ghost out on families, e.g., don't commit, don't cohabitate, don't marry?
Well, one of my favorite verses right there is, Jesus says it in the Bible, if you want to follow God, then you need to not love your father, essentially, is what's said. That is a kind of a metaphorical statement right there, but it said, let the dead bury the dead. So right there, it's a very individualistic concept. Christianity, I think innately, the messages in the Bible, they were a lot more individual based than is represented once it gets entrenched into society. And I think that it purports, family values because that is a positive thing for society. Stronger families means stronger education systems, means stronger churches, means stronger micro societies, cities. And at that time, that was essential. You lived with the people that you were directly around, and it was even more important for the family unit to be stuck together strongly. Now things are they're different. They're different. The individual can be an individual and have a better chance of surviving too.
Okay.
Perfect. The Real Donald asks, are you going to debate TJ Kirk? I don't know who that is. And I'm assuming that was for you, Sunrise.
If I don't know who that is either, so I guess I'm not planning on debating him.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know who he is, so I'm not planning on debating him either. Next question.
Well then. All right, also for Sunrise Hoodie, any thoughts on how the church should be reformed from gynocentrism, feminism, and social justice warrior infiltration?
That is a loaded question. That's for sure.
It is. Enjoy.
Well, if I had a theology thesis paper on my desktop right now to harken back to, I probably would. But I don't. And I think that for myself, it's another concern of mine, and it is not something that I know how to face, and therefore I'm going MGTOW, because all you can do is control the room that you're in currently. In a symbolic way, if you control your own life, then maybe somebody else will see that you're controlling your own life. But I think that it's just going to be continually, churches are going to devolve in strength and in size and in message. And I don't know what that switch is. I don't know when the switch will be, what flips that switch. But I think there will be a rebound a little bit to a more Bible-based message in the church, and not this feminist message within the churches. But I think that the church needs to emphasize what is actually said in the Bible. Not what's happening is it's echoing the demands that the media is demanding. It's echoing that you need to be a social justice warrior in order to be a good human. and as long as that message is in there, and as long as people are standing up and just going along with it and going along with their lives and saying, I'm going to the church and I'm donating and I'm doing what I have to do, and I'm living my comfortable life, that's not going to work. So that's the best I can do with that question.
Okay. Next question, still for you. Which versions of the Bible would you recommend for those that want to start reading and learning about the Bible?
Like I said, I think I mentioned that. Well, DDJ mentioned the NIV earlier. That was typically what Protestant churches gave their congregation. That was what you read, at least in the 90s and 80s. But now I would say that the ESV, is the English Standard Version, is probably a little bit more of a accurate representation of the Greek and Hebrew than the NIV, and it's also not gynocentrized. So, that's kind of a basic version. If you can stomach the King James, and you can read it coherently, but don't go into versions like the New Living Translation and this is modern day nonsense. That's just going to be polluted. Yeah.
The other thing that I would add to that is that if you can get a copy of an older version of the NIV, something that's at least 10 or 15 years old, that would be a good option as well.
Yeah, that's a good add-on.
Okay. Next question. Also for the guest. Are you a pre-trib, post-trib, mid-trib, pre-wrath, or a millennial? I think that says millennial. Believer. Just curious where you're coming from.
So you're saying the stages in the eschatological timeline, I'm guessing, is what he's referring to.
I would assume.
Yeah, so eschatologically, I was kind of just reviewing this very elementarily earlier today, and I was looking at the timeline. I would say it's still pre-tribulation, but I do think that we are seeing, evil is being turned to good, good is being turned to evil in the view politically, socially. And I think we're seeing some of these growing pains, and definitely even just the emergence of wars that are being rumored of, wars that are not occurring, wars that are occurring. There. I don't know. There's some signs, but I would say pre-trib. Yeah.
Okay. Next question.
This one's actually for you, DDJ. Halo Man asks you, what do men usually want from women that women don't usually give to men besides from sex?
Commitment, honesty, loyalty. Yeah. Those three things mainly.
I
Next
thought
question.
you were going to be lost for words for just a moment then.
No, those are pretty basic. So.
All right. Also another question for you, DDJ, from Taz. Does not wanting to lose money make you Jewish?
No. Well, if we were on the stream last night, absolutely. I mean, that Nigerian guy said he was Jewish because, he didn't want to pay $20 to take his girlfriend to the movies. So he said it was hilarious. Oh my God, the TFM lost it. So yeah, I mean, huh?
I think one of those Nigerian guys scammed me on eBay though. So
there you go.
Have that cash.
Right. You answered the email also. Damn it!
I bid it. Yeah. You got me a text message.
Right. Yeah. So no, it doesn't make you Jewish. It makes you minimalistic and it makes you smart. I mean, don't waste your money if you don't have to. If you don't need it, don't buy it. If you own it and you don't use it at least a couple times a year, get rid of it. I mean, we have too much shit. We live in a society where storage is an industry. Self-storage is a huge industry because we all have shit we don't use and we don't need and we don't necessarily want, but we just think we have to own it for some fucking stupid reason. And the reality is that you can have everything you need in your home, and yeah, you may not have absolutely everything you want, but you're not supposed to. So at the end of the day, live a minimalistic lifestyle. Keep the stuff that is useful to you, stuff that you use. Don't keep stuff around because it looks good or it has a nice paint job on the car or that's the only reason. Keep it because it has good utility. And if you do those things, you're less likely to get targeted by a gold digger for doing it, because gold diggers see guys that run out there and flaunt their wealth and do all these different things to peacock, and they're like, oh yeah, that guy's an idiot, he's a mark, and they see him from a mile away. So don't be that guy. Next question.
All right, DDJ, this one's about your book. When you published your book, did Amazon provide the ISBN or did you have to buy those?
Amazon through KDP provided the ISBN, but I had an option that if I already had an ISBN, I could have used my own. So yeah, it was free to me.
Okay. DDJ, would turnip be a good description of someone who's more retarded than potato?
Man, I don't know. I've been thinking about this a lot. I've been thinking, like, if you go way past full retard to potato, and then you go from potato to something else, I mean, turnip is a root vegetable, sort of like potato, so I guess it would be sort of like on par on the root vegetable food chain. So it would have to be something way beyond potato, like, I don't know, maybe like mud clog or rock, or I don't know. I'll have to think about that and get back to you.
I'm impressed by your effort in taxonomy there.
It's important to be able to have logic, reason, and facts when you're answering these types of questions. So I want people to know my thought process.
Okay. Next question. Hellerman asks, DDJ, if a country doesn't want to accept feminism by any means, what will be the action of the feminist? Of feminist?
Oh, they'll lose their shit. They'll show up anyway. You have to understand that the countries, the United States and the Western world, we export feminism around the world. And the countries that choose to avoid feminism, they just show up at the NGOs anyway. They just show up and they're like, we're going to have this NGO show up there and we're going to start talking about women's rights, and we're going to basically go under the guise of providing foreign aid. But the reality is that, they're looking for feminism to have a foothold in these countries. I watched a documentary, gosh, it was a couple months ago, about this guy who went into Africa and he was researching sexual assault. And so he walked into a village and he said, hey, I'm looking for sexual assault victims, and those people who were victims, if you come talk to me, I'm going to give you food. Well, guess what? A bunch of sexual assault victims popped up because they wanted the food, so they lied and said they were sexual assault victims, and they went and interviewed with him. And he basically said, he said, look, he goes, I can go into any village anywhere, and I can ask for these sexual assault victims to come out and talk, but if I don't offer them any food, nobody will show up. But if I offer food, all of a sudden I have more sexual assault victims than I know what to do with. So basically he's bribing them to have these false allegations. So that's what, feminists do this. This is feminist lie. The reason my book is called The Feminist Lie is because they lie. So absolutely, it's, they're going to do every underhanded tactic they can to get into these countries. And then on the outside, the feminist monolith that controls the media and that controls academia and controls public perception is going to badmouth that country consistently and bitch and moan and complain and nag until either the country adopts feminism or until there's a regime change of some time. And there's examples of this if you look at some of the examples that are out there.
Okay. The next one, I'm just going to make a little service announcement, I guess. Erama, I got your question, but there's a character count on the Bukkake Chokeslam redemption, so I only got half your question, so I can't really ask it. Sorry, I'm going to have to go to the next one. Rachel Ghoul asks a question to Sunrise Hoodie about red pill rage and religious faith. When the rage hits, isn't it normal to react and be angry at the church, maybe even at God? If society sold us lies, religion cannot be that different. And then they have, in quotations, God, why have you forsaken me? An arrow pointing to MGTOW and a smiley face.
Well, the thing that I would say is, what are you expecting from the church? What are you expecting from your faith? What are you expecting from Christianity? Christianity, the thing that I want to emphasize is that it doesn't guarantee you anything. I mean, that's how I view it. I'm not guaranteed anything. For all I know, I could have, tomorrow some catastrophe could happen. Everything could be taken away. Even if there was no reason for that, I could lose everything. I could, something catastrophic could occur. So I would think I come at it from kind of a humble perspective because of that. And that positions me to better, to better absorb the red pill rage feelings and to not be like, looking at divinity and seeing the lack of divinity in my life as a reason for problems, because you're not guaranteed anything. I think as people, we're guaranteed whatever we put forth. And so for me, that's helped me deal with red pill rage. I try not to blame anything else, because people have far worse lives and, or people have far better lives too. There's always somebody below you, always somebody above you. So I guess that's just my basic answer on that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Before we go to the next question, I want to go back and answer the other question about what is past potato. Once you've gone full retard to potato, what you go past it? I just got a private message from Nemo. Nemo actually made a very articulate argument about the next phase after potato should be mold, and I agree with him. So Nemo, good looking out. Congratulations, Nemo. I'm adopting your answer. So once you're so retarded, you go past potato, you go mold. You turn into mold. There you go.
I guess that's logical.
All right. Next question.
All right, next question. It's not addressed to anyone, but it says, options on South American Roman Church.
Cucked.
No idea what that means.
I mean, the Roman Catholic
I'm
Church,
sorry.
if it's Eastern Orthodox Roman Catholic, it's still patriarchal, but the majority of the churches in South America are starting to go gynocentric really hard.
No experience. I can't comment on that. So, but
Yeah, I only know because we had a guest on the TFM show a few months back who talked about it in detail.
Okay.
Okay.
Next question. I think we already answered part of it, but I'm just going to say the whole question with my terrible pronunciations. For Sunrise Hoodie, do you consider Mormons / LDS to be Christian? Also, your thoughts on other Miliatrite schemes? I have no idea.
Do I consider them Christians? I see them as two different faiths. I see them as Mormonism believes so many different things than Christianity does. I'm not trying to like patronize them or do anything of that nature, but that's just the case. My first girlfriend, who I nearly married, she was in LDS. She was Mormon, and that was a conflict. So I can speak in personal experience with that. Their view on soteriology is very different. Their view on just how to live day to day. I mean, hey, I don't have a basement full of Armageddon food right now either. But that's probably a good idea.
It actually is. Yeah, I would agree with that. That's one of the things I agree with. Absolutely. Yeah, they are fantastic preppers.
Yes, I did benefit from that. So I'll have to say, but I don't know what the second part of the question is.
Lyli, shoot me it in a message, and I'll see if I can interpret
I was about to say, you pronounce that for me because I'm just a woman. I need a patriarch to do these things for me.
Clearly. Well, at least you know your place. So, Millerite schisms.
I have no idea what that is.
I have no idea either. I'm not that much of a biblical scholar. All right.
Yeah.
So, sorry, buddy. We tried to help you out there, but apparently we're too ignorant. You got us. All right. Next question.
Okay. Sunrise Hoodie. It's like the same, but it's kind of reiterated, so I don't know if you get anything different from it. What about Mormon Church? Given that their ideology emphasizes marriage, is there a survival chance there?
Is there a survival chance in terms of looking for the Nawalt? Is he trying to say?
I would guess for like people that are Mormon, do they stand a chance against this gynocentric?
Well, as long as you're living in the Western world, you're a threat. As long as you're living in the Western world, even in the Eastern world, there's a threat. There's no safe space. There's no guarantee that she's going to stay around. I think there's a higher chance in the Mormon Church based on the fact that it's emphasized your value as a female is even more so than in the Protestant church and the Catholic church to have as many kids as possible. And if you're willing to exist in that social hierarchy and you value that social hierarchy, then as a female, you're going to pursue that. But, that's dwindling as well. And my view, I grew up around quite a few Mormon churches and many people I went to school with. But the influence of the mainstream media, the influence of promiscuity amongst women, I mean, it's the same thing. They're dealing with the same issues. So I wouldn't say that you're guaranteed anything.
It's funny that you mentioned promiscuity amongst females. When I was a lot younger, Utah used to have the highest rate of unwed mothers when it was primarily LDS as a state. I don't know if it's still primarily LDS, but yeah. It is absolutely, yeah. I mean, the hoe is real. And
don't be duped.
Don't be duped. Don't be duped. And they are so gynocentric, it is not even funny. So I had a lot of friends that are Mormon, and we've talked about that. So, but yeah. Trust me, thought lives matter just as much in the Mormon church as they do any place else. So now you know.
There's the answer.
Yep. Next question.
All right, next question for Sunrise again. How bad would gynocentrism have to get before you would consider leaving the US?
If it impacted my personal safety, if it to live on a day-to-day basis, if it impacted my ability to feed myself, if it impacted my ability to get a job, if it impacted my ability to do what I wanted to do in my free time, then I would leave. But right now I can do all those things, thankfully, but in 10 years, I have no idea where we'll be. So you might be talking to me in Nova Scotia and some island out there. So alone.
Okay. Just as kind of an
I don't know.
Nice. Just kind of an FYI to people out there. I know we have a few questions. We're still going to end the stream at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time, which is about 15 minutes from now. So just kind of an FYI. But I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. So if you don't get your question asked, I apologize. I just want to make sure that I keep my streams at a normal time frame. I have a life. I don't have time for 7-hour streams. I got shit to do. So, yeah, with that in mind, go ahead, Lily. Let's go to the next question.
All right, next question, also for Sunrise. With the rise of Islam, how do you think Christian church leaders will respond when the solution is male authority to produce a stable birth rate?
So basically, you're saying they want to take the lead from Islamic churches.
I'm not sure I can repeat the question if you need.
Islamic patriarchy to copulate and produce children, basically, is what he's asking.
Yeah, ask the question again.
I'm not really sure.
Ask the question again.
Right,
we don't want Lily to get in trouble for taking the question out of context. Go ahead and repeat it.
Oh gosh. All right. With the rise of Islam, how do you think Christian church leaders will respond when the solution is male authority to produce a stable birth rate?
I'm trying to even make sense of that question.
I think
male authority is connected to a birth rate. And
let me address it a little. Let me kind of address it a little bit. I think the thing that people need to understand is that non-patriarchal societies, the birth rate falls into the gutter, and in patriarchal societies, the birth rate starts to go up. And honestly, I think that what's going to happen is with the quote-unquote threat of Islam to Christianity, we're going to see, if we just left it to the Christian churches, we're going to see exactly what happened in Europe, or what's happening in Europe. You're going to see it happen everywhere else, where like Sweden, for example, there's an open armed resistance right now. There are no-go zones where they've implemented Sharia law. The police are too terrified to go in there because they're afraid to get killed. These Muslim men are taking advantage of the situation. They're raping and harassing these women and doing whatever it is that they want to do. I personally think the church is too cucked to do anything about it. I think that we're in stage 4 feminist cancer, and I think that at least when it comes to Europe, that Western society is fucked, because I think we're unless there's an actual like a war of some kind. I think it's going to be a problem, and I don't think that stabilizing the birth rate of Christians is going to solve the problem right away. I think it has to be a multifaceted solution. But that's my perspective on it. Sunrise Hoodie, I hope that kind of addresses that question for you a little bit. But if you want to add to it.
No, yeah, that makes sense in terms of the differences between, patriarchal societies and non-patriarchal ones. I mean, just look at the birth rate in the United States. So I don't know if they'll respond at all. I don't think they will respond at all in terms of trying to reflect or ideologically or even doctrinally. If they're not doing that, I don't think there's any reason that there would be this change. So it's cucked. I mean, the church is cucked in so many ways.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Next question.
I hope you're ready for this. Does the guest believe in Nova's flood and a 6,000-year-old Earth, and how does he reconcile it with scientific evidence? I warned you.
You did. You did warn me.
Go. Yep.
Oh man. All right. Do I believe in Noah's flood? I think my entire reputation of my channel's on the line here.
It is. No pressure. Just breathe through it.
Do I agree with what was the other one?
A 6,000-year-old Earth.
I don't agree with the 6,000-year-old Earth. I do believe in Noah's flood. I do. I think that there's archaeological evidence for that in terms of Noah's Ark. I mean, in Mount Ararat, but what was the third point too?
How do you reconcile it with scientific evidence?
Okay.
Basically, how does scientific evidence challenge your views?
I guess scientific evidence is saying that the Earth is exceedingly longer than anything offered within the Bible, as well as what he's saying. I don't think that the Bible necessarily prescribes that the world is of a certain certain age. I think that this is one of the hangups at the creation story and the origin myth. The creation myth is how long, in fact, were the first 7 days. Many people take that literally and say that it was 7 days. I do not take it literally. I do not think that it was a 7-day time span. The same type of people would often argue on behalf of when Joshua and the Israelites were pillaging a city, and the sun was stopped for a day. They're going back to astronomical evidence to see if that was the case. So I don't think that the Earth is of the age of 6,000 years. I think it's what is it commonly held? I don't know, a couple billion years. That is usually what I follow. But I don't honestly. I don't study Mesozoic periods, Precambrian evidence, scientific. I don't even have time to look into that in depth as many people do. But so I try to do that as sufficiently as I could.
Well, my view is this. I mean, there is legitimate evidence that the flood happened, at least like you were talking about with I forget the name of the mountain. I also believe that obviously the Earth is far older than 6,000 years. But I think that what people miss about the Bible and Christianity is that as much as these stories are there, whether you believe them or not, the stories exist because they're parables, they're teachings, they're wisdom that's there from a Judeo-Christian perspective. So even if you don't believe the flood happened, the story of the flood is a parable about preparing for the worst and doing what you can to get through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to emphasize as well, because so many of the, if you look at the Gilgamesh of the stories and Egyptian creation myths, different ones throughout Mesopotamia, definitely in Greek mythology as well. There are a lot of parallels because a lot of these stories reflect the experiences of humankind. They reflect inner psychology and the individual's mind and the individual's narrative and growth. And so there's a reason at the level of a parable. As well, and that's recurring not just in the Old Testament but also in the New Testament. I mean, pretty much some of the most referred to passages in the New Testament, they're all parables. The same can be said about the Old Testament as well. So, and they're often the most debated. And there's a reason for, I mean, people operate under making sense of the world through stories. I mean, that was how information was passed down before writing. That was, before written word. I mean, this is how we communicated as people. We operated orally. We operated through pictures as well. But that is across cultures, across thousands of years, been the case.
Well, I do appreciate someone with good oral skills. I'm just saying. So I get it. Next question.
Next question for DDJ. Would women in their 50s and 60s generally act like their 20s, such as being gold diggers, hypergamy, etc., riding the cock carousel, if they still had their looks from the 20s?
They're doing it now. There are women in their 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, and they believe the bullshit that they've been told. And they're divorcees. They're there's a reason that older women are called cougars. It's because they're predatory. It's not because any kind of like things slow down. And that's actually one of the biggest issues that women have as they age, is that once they hit the wall, or once they go past the wall, they don't understand that their sexual market value goes down. And so they start hunting more actively for these people to gold dig from. I mean, there's stories of women who have married multiple times for the express purpose of gold digging from each and every divorce they got. I personally know of a particular woman who she has married 4 times for money, and every time she got divorced, she ended up divorce raping the guy she was with. And now she is on her 4th marriage, and she'll end up divorce raping this guy too. So it's completely retarded. But yeah, so there you go. Next question.
All right, next question. Omar, I got your question this time. You're all good. For DDJ, how would you change your life's goal after dreaming to build a family for over 20 years?
That was a really hard question for me. Because I was married twice. So, and if you guys caught the Friday Mad Max stream, I talked about this a little bit, but I think it's important to reiterate here. I was when it came to marriage and male-female relationships, I was very much a traditionalist in that, when I got my first divorce, I was like, oh, maybe I chose the wrong woman. Maybe, this and that and da-da-da-da. So, I went out and dated. I didn't get married again for over 5 years. And I went out and I saw hypergamy firsthand, and I saw gynocentrism firsthand. And finally, when I found a woman that I was interested in, I made her wait for 5 years before I would marry her. And I thought, well, if I make her wait for 5 years, she's committed, she's invested, all this other shit. And you know what? One day she changed. And she was no longer the Nawalt that I thought she was. And what I found out was that there was a part of her that I just never knew to begin with. I mean, I did the whole, they always tell you, these women always tell you, oh, well, you should trust. And, then they gaslight you. Oh, you're insecure, or you're this or you're that. Well, no, if you see shit, you see warning signs, you should be concerned. If you're, you find a pool and you see it's filled full of piranhas, you don't just swim on the left-hand side of the pool. No, the fucking piranhas will swim over there and they'll fucking eat you. So you avoid the fucking pool to begin with. And it's the same thing with marriage. And the idea is that, when you live your life, and this goes for a lot of guys who are divorced, they get married with the idea that this is going to be the woman that they're going to spend the rest of their life with. And this is their goal. This is the thing they're working toward, their kid, their house, their car, their retirement. They go through and they make all these huge sacrifices, and men sacrifice all the time. They make these huge sacrifices for this marriage. And then when the woman self-destructs the marriage because she decided to monkey branch or jump on the cock carousel, or because she just finally gave in to the social justice indoctrination that feminists provide, and like I said, she pulls the hand grenade on her marriage, that guy's stuck. He gets depressed, he gets upset, he starts dealing with all kinds of negative emotions. And so it is extremely difficult to find purpose in life at the end of a relationship like that. And I know this from personal experience. You have a really difficult, it's really difficult because you have to realize that the woman that you dedicated your life to is now your enemy. She doesn't give a shit about you. And when a woman will change her mind, she'll act as though she has always had that opinion. And it's ridiculous. And so you end up going to court and going to divorce court and dealing with a woman who you knew you would lay your life down for, knowing that she would shoot you in the face the first chance she got. That's a brutal reality check. And it's depressing. It hurts. And so you have to understand that at that point, when the marriage is over and the relationship is dead, and I talk about the relationship in other videos. I've talked about the relationship being dead before the marriage ends, and that is true. But when the relationship ends and you recognize it, or when the marriage is over and she monkey branches to somebody else, you have to understand that she probably never loved you to begin with. She was just there to use you. You were a stepping stone. If you listen to the earlier part of the stream, we talked about PaulProteus. One of my most favorite videos on MGTOW philosophy is Hypergamy Floats by PaulProteus. It is a fantastic video of MGTOW wisdom, and it's absolutely true. And once you understand Hypergamy Floats, you understand that you have standards, and that's why she left. You brought accountability to the table. That's why she left. You were mature and you had goals and you had good things about you, and that's why she left. It had nothing to do with you. Now, she's going to make up 20 different excuses. She's going to say, oh, well, you weren't emotionally supportive, or you weren't this and you weren't that, but you were probably working 60, 70, 80 hours a week to provide for her dumbass. You were probably making all sorts of other sacrifices, and so maybe you may not have been perfect, but you're fucking human, and you did everything in your power to make sure that marriage works. And again, I say this from personal experience. So you have to understand that once you understand that you're not the problem, once you get out of that gaslighting, because these women, they will gaslight you right from day one of the relationship. They shit test you all the time, even if they don't realize that they're doing it. So you have to understand that once you understand female nature, once you understand hypergamy, and once you understand that you as a man are not at fault for doing these things. Now, this is assuming that you're not a DV perp. This is assuming that, you don't have bodies in the back of your Chimo van and stuff like this. I'm talking about normal men. Once you understand that, then you start having to really think about, well, what did I want to do with my life before I met her? I mean, that's what I did. What were the things I've always wanted to do that I never could do? What were the things that I always dreamed about doing when I was younger? And, go back and do those things. You still have time. Life does not end when you're 40 or even when you're 50. You can live a long time if you take care of yourself physically, emotionally, psychologically. You have to rebuild those social networks in order to have that social support as well. You can't. I mean, no man is an island. And so when it comes to finding purpose in life, you don't necessarily need to look for purpose. What you need to do is you need to remember your purpose. Because before you met the woman who you fell in love with, who monkey branched to somebody else and wasn't worth your time, you had dreams, you had goals, you had things you wanted to do. Remember what those are and go do them.
Mm-hmm.
DDJ, do you mind if I just...
Go ahead.
What would you suggest for younger men that haven't had a family, they haven't even had that experience yet? How do you get them to change their I want a family thought process?
I don't think you can. And I'll tell you why. I think the hardest part about it, especially for a younger guy, is that sex drive is real. I mean, God, I remember when I was 24, holy shit. The sex drive is real. It is absolutely real. The thirst is real. And when it comes to guys, you younger guys that are out there, at 47, my sex drive is still pretty high. But after a cost-benefit analysis, you realize the juice is not worth the squeeze. And for you younger guys that are out there, it is especially dangerous for you. Because the women your age, I would say all of them are retarded in that they don't understand how to follow a man. They want men to make the first move. They want men to be the aggressor. They want men to want them. They want to be courted. They want a traditional courting. They want a traditionally patriarchal courting ritual But then when you give them that, they don't know how to handle it because they're socially retarded, because they've been indoctrinated in this feminist thing that, you know, if you flirt with a woman, you're sexually harassing her. Or if you're doing all these different things, it's somehow negative and bad. And they don't appreciate, you know, that really you're just trying to express interest because you just need to get your dick wet. So, or they do understand it, but it terrifies them because they feel like they're out of control, because they're not, their mind and their heart aren't in the same place, especially with their hormones raging as well. So when it comes to these, you know, younger men, my suggestion is this: find something that you like. And I say this as well, both with work and with hobbies. Find a job that supports the lifestyle you want. Don't run out there and look for your dream job. Don't be like, well, I need to get the perfect job. Find the job that supports the lifestyle you want to live or that you feel comfortable living in. And then find some hobbies or find some interests that you can master. And whatever it is you do, whether it's at work or whether it's at home or no matter where you're at, the thing you want to remember is this: be the best at whatever it is you do. Be the master at it. You know, before feminism, what we used to tell men was that if you go and got a 40-hour-a-week job, you could work those 40 hours a week and go home and do your thing. But you were just as responsible for maintaining yourself in that industry. Because it used to be, in the long, long ago, you can go out and get a job and work that job for 25 years or 30 years or 40 years or 50 years and retire from that job and have a good life for yourself. For the most people now, that's not the economy we live in. And so you have to maintain your skills. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. You should go out and like read industry news. You should spend 10 to 15 hours a week in self-improvement, above and beyond exercise, above and beyond recreational reading, above and beyond any spiritual pursuits that you may have, and really focus on making sure that you can be the best you can be so that you can live the lifestyle you want to live. And so when it comes to that direction, master something, whether you're into sports or whether you're into martial arts, or just find a skill, find a trade, find something that you can get really good at, whether it's a musical instrument or something. But you want to be able to fulfill yourself and have a fulfilling life. Find the things you want to do. Do you want to travel? Go travel. You want to read stuff? Go read stuff. If you want to experience things or learn a different language, go do that. But the world is a vast place, and we have plenty of opportunities to experience it. And so for you younger guys that are going to be out there, you know, you have to understand two things. One, your sex drive is going to be ridiculous. And two, when women see that you're trying to ghost them, they will chase you. If you're fit, and you don't have to be ridiculously fit, like you don't even have to be athletically fit. If you're relatively fit and you're clean and you take care of yourself and you're not a cuck, these women will try to hunt you down because you are basically the one-eyed man in the land of the blind. So you have to make sure that you know how to ghost. And that is an absolute requirement, because if you don't, you're going to slip on a banana peel, you're going to give this bitch the bukkake choke slam, and she's going to trap you with a kid, and then you're fucked, literally. And yeah, you got your dick wet, congratulations, but you also got the other bullshit that goes along with it. Good job.
Yeah, if you don't want the job, don't do the interview either.
Yeah,
That's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah, and you know,
don't do it.
Vasectomies are a thing. Just saying, they're a thing.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, echoing off that was a message that everybody needs to hear at any point in their life, but especially for people my age, because if you don't have that purpose ground, you don't know what you're going to pursue, you're going to default to pursue things that are not going to benefit you. Most likely, they're going to be more dopamine rushes. They're going to be pursuing those relationships that aren't going to add fruit to your life long term. And you're going to look back and you're going to wish that you still had that time. You still had the opportunity to choose that, because the 10,000 hours rule is real. And there are more and more people out there that are competing for jobs unless you harness that, because pursuing a relationship, pursuing a girlfriend and getting married, good luck in balancing that. Good luck in actually reaching your full potential in those areas. That takes almost superhero-esque qualities to do, time-wise.
Yeah. And I will say this as well. I mean, if you're a guy who has a relatively high sex drive, and you know you've got some chick that you can't deal with, or because like you're so attracted to her or whatever, and the thirst is real, rub one out twice and see what she brings to your life after that. Don't think it. You know, you don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry, right? It's the same thing. Don't chase pussy if you're not sated. And if you think that you have to, ask yourself, what does she bring to the table? And if it's nothing but a piece of pussy, stay away from it.
What did Tupac say at the end of, I forgot what song it was. Niggas be dying when chicks be horny. You got
Yep.
Yeah. That's what happens.
Yep. Yeah. And if you think she's the one, just remember she is. She's just a scorpion. So now you know. Let's take one more question. It's past 4:30, and let's close down the stream.
Okay. Last question then. To the guest. Do you think that there will be a rift in the church because of feminists in them?
I think that there already is. I think that there already is a rift in the church because more and more men are leaving the church I'm basing this off of many of the responses that I've received. And more men are being skeptical of putting their own growth on the line by being involved in that. And so if there are no male leaders within the church, subsequently there will be a rift within the church. The church will not be as it once was. And so I think that the church becomes something different. It becomes a feminist church, I mean, as it already is. So I think doctrinally there already is as well. I mean, what we discussed about earlier, doctrinally it already is as well. When I go and take that Bible class, and pretty much everything is looked at from a postmodernist perspective as well. I mean, that's something entrenched within society. I think that there are doctrinal schisms everywhere because of this. So it's already occurring.
Okay. Well, thank you.
That was it.
Perfect. So I just wanted to thank the Dollhouse for their sponsorship. And if you guys are interested in them, their website will be on the description of this video when it comes out. But my channel was false flagged for having a link to their channel or to their website here. So rather than run the risk of getting false flagged again, I'm not going to put it here, but I will put it also on my Patreon as well. But check them out and go from there. I appreciate their sponsorship. And also thank you to all my patrons, and thank you to the people in the community who have left supportive comments, who have watched my videos, and who have supported the work that I do. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys know that it's very clear that many of you think with logic, reason, and facts before you come to decisions, and you verify things for yourself. So thank you again for tuning in. Lyli, thank you for being a good Q&A thought today. Sunrise Hoodie, thank you for being here.
Thanks, DDJ. Appreciate it.
Yep. You guys have a great day, and we'll talk soon.